Hello and welcome, everyone. I am Briar Harvey. This is the Neurodiversity Media Network. Today, I'm very excited about our new series, Brand Wild, with Haley Shane. I've known Haley, God, in internet years for a long ass
Oh,
time
wow.
now.
Yeah.
Like 4 or 5 years
Yeah.
we've known each other, which truly it's an eternity in internet time. Haley is one of my favorite branding folks. And I think it's because Haley talks about branding in a way that is not typical. It's not necessarily about beige, and neither is it necessarily about outrage. There's a nice middle ground here, I think.
Balance.
Balance, right. That's the goal,
Balance.
y'all. Balance. So, the show is called Brand Wild, and Haley's stuff is brand wild. And so today we are going to talk about what a wild brand is, what it looks like, how you make one. So, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm glad we did this. This was a
Yes,
great idea.
yes. I'm so glad you're here. All right. What is a wild brand?
What is a wild brand? So, I want to tell a story. The other day, I had to stop at a gas station to get gas. And I pulled in and I walked in. I was getting an energy drink while I was there. And I get to the gas station, and as I'm walking in, I get an ad on my phone to buy a new phone. I'm like, whatever. And I ignore it. And I walk in the gas station, and there's an ad playing on the radio. And I get my Red Bull, and there's like ads and signage and all this shit as I'm walking to the counter. And I get my Red Bull and I pay for my gas. And I walk back outside to pump my gas. And I start pumping it, and there's a fucking ad playing on the gas pump. And it's some jackass celebrity that's talking about how he just loves to go into random gas stations and spend $100 on like bedazzled camo hats. And I'm sitting there and I'm pumping gas for $4 a gallon.
All this sounds about right.
I'm not saying that I agree with what the Unabomber did, but I'm starting to understand why. And like it really hit me in that moment. I was like, I'm not gonna mail a bomb to anybody. Like I don't agree with what he did, but like I think he's right. And he had this quote. I can't remember it exactly because it's like word for word because it's really long. But he was basically saying that like it's kind of your duty to either create your own thing or just go live in the wild, which is what he chose to do. He chose a very like primitive, very off the grid, no water, no electricity, like didn't shower. Um, but he talked about like there's not a rule that says you have to go to work every day. There's no law. Like legally they can't make you do it. And you could choose to either start your own thing, which is what we as entrepreneurs do, or you could just like, live rough and, live out in the wild. And the way that quote ends is, but there's very little wild country left. And there is. And this is especially true now because I think his manifesto came out in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah, that
which
seems
is what
right
that's
to me.
from.
And early 90s,
Hmm.
too.
Yeah, because he was captured in 96, so I think they published it in like 94,
Hmm.
95. So that's kind of a build up to what I'm getting at, which is like we have created a really nice big cage for ourselves. And I talked about this the other day. Like business owners are even kind of the worst about this. Is like you do this thing because you don't want to have a boss and you don't want to have to like clock in every day, and so You start this thing and then you scale and then you hire all these employees and then you buy all this software and then you got to manage all of this shit. And it's like, congratulations, you just created another job for yourself. You have a 9 to 5 job. So that's kind of what Brand Wild is. I'm like, how can we build a brand that's sustainable, that's profitable? Because you have to have money. I'm not sitting here and saying like we should all just go live in the woods. It's not glamorous, and like I don't even want to do that. But how do we do it in a way that like actually gives us freedom? Like how do we do it in a way that is actually built in a way that we want? Where we can kind of get back and this is I think it's a super relevant conversation now with AI and ChatGPT and Midjourney and stuff like that. It's like
Mhm.
how long do humans have while we're still human? And this is I'm not shit talking AI, I'm not shit talking Midjourney or anything like that, but I really see it in a couple of years. The key differentiator for a lot of people is going to be like, hey, I'm actually a human. I don't use any of that stuff, which is
And
cool, but also kind of terrifying.
cool, terrifying, and a sign of why embracing your personal identity is worth so much more
Hmm.
now. We, in my Marisa Lowen's group program, The Catalyst, we're constantly making fun of the beige on
Hmm.
beige people, right? And
Yeah.
they're everywhere on Instagram. It's all beige. I think the more we lean into exactly what our personal identity is and our personal brand looks like, the more we find the people who resonate with us. So,
Hmm.
how do we do that?
Yeah. So this is a more complicated question than it would look like on the surface. So, this is one of the things that started to steer me away from just graphic design and into strategy. Because when we talk about identity, a lot of graphic designers go, oh, a brand identity, like your logo and your typefaces and your color palette and all of this stuff, that is the definition of what that is, right? I don't look at it like that. I look at identity as a personal identity. So, how do you dress? How do you talk? Like, what are your values? What do you stand for? None of it has to do with a logo or colors or any of that. That can come
Are you
later. You can
telling me
change it.
my custom branded font is worthless, Haley? It's worthless,
it's
y'all.
it's maybe not worthless, but like, okay. Let me put it to you all like this. I have done an incredible amount of work on myself over the last few years. I make logos. That is a part of what I do. I love designing logos. I love logo design. It's one of my favorite things to do. I don't have a fucking logo. I don't. Like
It's
if
always
you
the
go to my
barefooted
website,
cobbler's children.
the logo at the top, it's just my name. I stuck a lightning bolt in the middle and the lightning bolt isn't even I didn't even measure it. I freehanded it. It's not perfect. Like cuz I didn't care. It doesn't matter. I could change it right now. It would not fucking matter. But all of the my personal identity and like all of the work that I did, that can't change. It didn't. Like it won't. I mean it will change. Like we should change as we evolve, but it's not gonna that's really what matters. Me changing my logo doesn't matter. Me changing my colors doesn't matter. I could go redesign my fucking website right now. It really wouldn't matter.
So, what's important then?
For what? For brand identity
For
as
brand
a whole?
identity. If it's not my branded font, Haley,
You can still use your branded font. That's
oh,
cool.
it's right there on your forehead as we speak.
Yeah.
My branded font. But truly,
Hmm.
it's worth very little
Yeah.
in terms of what my brand is.
So when we compare it to a logo, right? logos do not assign value to a brand. The brand is what gives that logo its sauce, for lack of a better word. Everything behind that, your personal identity, and I'm speaking, you can do this for a corporation too, you can do this for a business. Like, don't think that, oh, well, this doesn't apply to me because I've got 1,000 employees and I can't do that for everybody. You can do it as a business. But talking about actual personal branding, like, I'm not the only brand strategist in the world. I'm not the only graphic designer in the world. And to be honest, I'm probably not the best at either. I'm really good, but there's people that charge $100,000 just to come up with a name for your business. I could not imagine charging that. The magic of it is just me and how I do it, and the values, the beliefs that I have, the way that I look at branding, and you can take that and apply it to whatever it is that you do. If you're a digital marketer, if you do ads, you do social media management, podcasts, whatever, it doesn't matter. Everybody has values, things that they agree with, and things that they disagree with, and an outward way that they present themselves. What I do is figure out what that person actually is at the root of all of that, and then brand around that. Because if you don't, what happens, if you listen to all these coaches and these gurus, and they're like, no, you got to do it like this, and you got to send a million cold DMs a day, and you got to do all this, it'll work. Okay? It will work. You will make money. And in a year, you will want to put a gun to your head because you hated what you've built. But now, because you've made so much money doing it, you feel like you're obligated to do it, and you've built this lifestyle and you kind of have to keep it up. And you've got to show all those highlight reels, and you can't stop now because then what'll people think? I don't like doing that. I don't like setting people up for that. So it's like, okay, how can we figure out why it was that you actually started this? And the answer cannot be money. I don't care what the answer is, it cannot be money. Because everybody has a reason for it.
I can't help but remember the time that Slack paid $500,000 to change their logo into ducks smelling each other's butts.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, it's not what it looks like that matters, and we don't continue to use or don't use Slack regardless of what the
Mm-hmm.
fucking logo looks like.
Yeah.
So
Fuck Slack, by the way, I'll just say it.
oh,
I hate
agreed.
Slack.
Agreed. But why do we care so much about the external appearance of the thing?
Yeah. So I always say this when people ask me, like, okay, I want to work with you, what does that look like? I'll go into this huge spiel about how important strategy is. And then with the visuals, I'm like, and they're really cool. Like, because, like, our monkey brain, like our primal brain, that's really what it is. Design has a purpose, and there's little psychological hacks and stuff like that with the design. And I'm not saying that that stuff's not important. But at the end of the day, like, we want that stuff because it looks cool. Like, you wanted your custom branded font because it was cool, right?
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah. Like, I'm doing I've got a client right now. He has a book. It's a thinly veiled fiction book, we'll call it. But he was a Green Beret. He was a Marine for a little bit. He medically retired, and then he came out and he started writing books, which is like a TLDR of his story. But I've been doing some, like, patches and stickers and stuff like that for him. Like, it's just cool. It's cool. Like, people read the book, they liked the book, and now they want. I've got the stickers on my water bottle, actually. I like putting stickers on my water bottle, so we made stickers. Like, that's literally it. You know? Yeah. Graphics are cool.
Graphics are cool. Graphics are part of how we tell the story.
Mhm.
Graphics are part of how we relate. But at the end of the day, graphics are just cool.
They
So,
are. And
how,
I would argue visually that is a part of your identity. Like if you look at it as a person, like how you dress. Okay, like me right now, I've got my gym hoodie on and it says kickboxing down the sleeve. So you could discern from looking at that I go to a kickboxing gym. Yeah. Like that communicates something about me visually, right? My headset, if you notice, it is RGB. It's very gamer like. You could assume that I play a lot of video games. So it does have a purpose in, is this for me or is it not for me? We'll go back to the analogy with the book author that I'm working with. If you see his stuff, you can very easily tell that he was in the armed forces. He likes guns, and some people are really cool with that, and some people are not really cool with that. So it does have a purpose beyond it looks cool, but it is there to communicate quickly because you can communicate a lot faster with pictures than you can with words. And I know that's going to piss a lot of copywriters off, but it's the truth. You can look at a picture a lot faster than you can read a paragraph. It's just how it is. So it does serve a purpose other than being cool.
mhm,
But Monkey Brain says it's cool and I want it, so that's what we do.
mhm. And it both attracts and repels,
Mhm.
which is true of all marketing, but especially true of our visual marketing. So, what is important here? If it's if visuals are not the brand,
Mhm.
how do we use our visuals to tell a story?
Yeah. So it goes back to what I was talking about. It's like at your core, who are you? And I would have to dig for the notebook. It's somewhere around here, but I went through a just rabbit hole of like identity and what it's made up of and like how do we like why do we use that word and what all does it encompass and stuff like that. But one of the things was like your outward appearance and then like your inward stuff. And there was three other things too. I think one was like what we believe and then like what culture we are and then inherent traits that you can't change, like your race. You can't change your race. Um, so yeah, it's used to communicate what's inside, basically. And you can, depending on the story, you could tell that a lot of different ways. You know, if you see me, the majority of the time I'm in gym clothes. So that tells a story of like, I take care of myself. Maybe I'm very disciplined. Um, or in the case of kickboxing specifically with this hoodie on, you could maybe assume that I didn't know how to defend myself at one point and that scared me and so now I know how to defend myself. Maybe I'm actually a professional fighter. You don't know. I'm not, by the way. But
No, but what I'm hearing are a lot of assumptions.
mhm,
Visually, I see something and make assumptions because that's how my monkey brain works. It
mhm,
sees things and it categorizes it.
mhm.
So I'm seeing this thing and I'm making assumptions. And how do I make sure that they're the right ones?
Yeah, so you're putting things in boxes because we are overwhelmed with so much information in a day. Our brain did not evolve quick enough to actually be able to take all of that information in and remember all of it. So we have what I call a bullshit meter, which basically it's the filter in your brain that decides to get rid of like 95% of the stuff that you see in a day because it doesn't matter. So visually, how do we communicate like, hey, this is the 5% that matters? And that comes back to what do we want to communicate, right? Do we want to communicate our beliefs, our values, an offer that we have, social proof, a testimonial, and like what visually is the best way to do that to get the people that actually care about it to remember it and take up that itty bitty little piece of space in their brain. Because even brands that you hate do this really well. Like if you think of a brand that you will never buy from, ever, you got it? You'll
Mm-hmm.
never buy from them and they're right there. For me, it's Apple. Like, but Apple lives rent free in my head.
Nestle, but same.
Yeah, but they're right there.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless, you will never buy from them, but they take up just that tiny little bit of real estate in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really effective branding and communication. So, we do have to assume a little bit because we are so overwhelmed with information. What we want to do is we want to move somebody from like assumption to actually like, oh, okay, this is cool. Like, how do I find out more about it? And there's a ton of different ways to do that too. And now you're getting into like, user journey and customer journeys and stuff like that, but which you can also do that visually, but yeah.
And I guess my next question is, how do I know that I'm saying the right things?
Hmm.
Especially as someone who is autistic, I
Right.
take your word that we're saying the
Hmm.
right things. But short of that, how do I look at, especially in an image saturated culture where I'm constantly creating Canva graphics or whatever, I'm using branding elements that have already been created for me,
Hmm.
but at the end of the day, I'm building new shit. How do I make sure that that says what I want it to say?
Yeah. So one of the best and easiest ways to make sure of that, and everybody hates doing this, is just to test it.
Oh, Haley. Damn it.
Like
Oh,
put
no.
it out there and see how it does. And people don't like doing that because they're like, "Oh, but then it'll look like I'm confused and blah 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 blah." Like the internet has a memory of about 12 hours. Nobody's going to care
Truly.
after that. Nobody's even going to fucking remember it. Like yeah, so that is honestly really one of the best ways is just to like put stuff out there and test and see how it does. Especially if you're new, if you're new to the business game and you're starting out and you don't really know like kind of what it is that you want to do or like who you are and like your values and stuff like that if you're young, this is the best one of the best ways to do it. Like see if it, put out stuff that feels good to you and then see how people react to it.
One of the things that we talk a lot about here, especially with Alice, is volume. So testing when I'm new and I don't have volume can potentially cause problems. How do I know that I'm actually reaching the right people when I'm
Hmm.
testing?
Yeah. So when you're starting out, and I'm talking like just starting out, you don't really know because most people don't have a really good idea of who it is that they want to appeal to. You're in that kind of feast or famine mode and you're just trying to survive, right? You're like anybody that will buy this is my people right now cuz I got bills to pay. When you elevate to a level above that, you should have a pretty clear picture of who it is that you want to attract. Um, and again, multiple ways to do that. Sometimes you just need to hit the bricks, as they say, and go talk to people, which is a fantastic way to actually get to know somebody and is something that I don't see put out there as advice a lot because we have chat gpt and we can be like build me a customer avatar and then it'll just shit it out in a spreadsheet. um, One of the best ways to figure this out is to just go talk to people, and this was a gift that I was given, and I guess didn't realize it at the time, but I was a musician for a very long time, and so I played out in public a lot, and so I talked to people a lot. um, they were drunk most of the time because I played in a lot of bars and stuff like that, but you really even if you just go and you just people watch, you learn a lot about people. And so if you're like, maybe you're targeting like somebody that has a side hustle, order a fucking Uber and go talk to your Uber driver.
There you go.
Like, it's very simple. Not going to say it's easy, but it's very simple. Like,
But I do think that leads us pretty naturally to the next question, which is, when do I actually need a brand?
yeah. So if you are, and this is kind of a rough generalization because I can't encompass everybody that's maybe watching this at once, but I would say if you're in your first 1 to 2 years of business, you do not need it, because you have not been in it long enough to really like learn some hard lessons, and I think you need that in order to make an effective brand. You need to get punched in the face a little bit, to use a kickboxing analogy. Like, you need to kind of take your licks and learn some very fundamental stuff before you start worrying about this. If you are past that, or you are at the point, I have a lot of clients that are at this point when they come to me, they're just like, hey, I've been doing this for a little bit and I just don't like it anymore. I think I need to burn it all to the ground and start again. That is a really good time to do branding. It seems
Say more.
backwards, but
No,
yeah.
but there's a connection here. So say more about why the burn it all to the ground stage, which is a specific phase of business, is
And
related to
everybody's
brand.
gone through it. If
Everybody's
you've been
gone.
in it
If you
long enough, you've
haven't,
gone
your
through it.
time will come.
Yeah, you'll get there. Don't you worry. Worry not, young grasshopper. Your day will come where you will want to light the match. So I get a lot of clients, they come to me, and the word or the phrase that always comes up is, I think I'm having an identity crisis. And I'm like, yes, yes, like, now we get to fix it. So this is what I'm talking about. Like, having to kind of take those hard licks and those punches in the face, you learn a lot through that. And you learn a lot through success too, but not nearly as much as, like, getting punched in the mouth will teach you, because you learn a lot in that moment. And so when you've hit that I want to burn it all down stage, I'm like, this is where we get to like the real shit, and you can really build a brand that is super aligned with you, that is just like, it is your soul on paper pretty much. Like, that is the point where I would like most of my clients to be.
Because that identity crisis is when I'm finally ready to start owning what I actually do and who I actually serve
Hmm.
and what my mission is in the world.
Hmm. And it's very freeing because most people they've been told to do it a certain way, to talk a certain way, and that burns you out. And so when you hit that stage, there is something in you that's like, I don't want to fucking do it like this anymore. I don't care if I go broke. I cannot keep on like this anymore, which is hilarious because that's actually usually where you end up making more money and more impact, and you get to serve more clients and you get to do more of what you actually like, is after this stage. So I would say the faster that you can get there actually is better. But yeah, that's the identity crisis stage is definitely where I would start. There is also a very tiny subset of people that I work with, and this is very rare, but they owned a business and it was very successful, and then they sold it and they thought, "Oh, I'm going to retire." And then they got like 6 months into that, now they're bored as shit and they want to start another one, and then, they know how important branding is because they've been through this. So that's a very niche section, but yeah.
Yeah, if you've sold a brand, then you have to reinvent. So it's similar but different.
Mhm. Yeah.
And reinvention, I think, comes with the willingness to say and do the thing that we were unwilling to do before. And
Mhm.
how is that related to my brand?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different pieces in this like initial stage that you have to figure out who you're doing it for, how you intend on doing it, why you're doing it. Okay. Most people, the why did not change.
Right.
They think that it changed because they hate what they're doing. The why you're doing this did not change. The who you're doing it for has probably evolved, and the how you're doing it is burning you out. Your why is probably still the same. I would be willing to bet money on that for like 99% of people.
Agreed.
So it's and that scares people sometimes because they're like, did I pick the wrong thing? Did I spend all this time like building the wrong business? Like, oh shit, what do I do? It's like, no, you didn't. We just need to change some fundamental stuff.
And the who I serve often changes at this stage. And Veronica and I talk about this too. Sometimes it's operational, but
Mhm.
often it's about not charging enough for what the work actually
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
Which means you either have to increase your volume or you have to increase the amount of money you are charging a specific client, which
Mhm.
means that client avatar changes.
Has to.
Let's
Yeah.
let's
For
talk about that.
solopreneurs especially, because
Mhm.
there's only so much volume one person can do.
But if my avatar changes, and
Mhm.
what happens a lot I've observed, especially people who they start by serving solopreneurs with good intentions. I'm going to fix business.
Yep.
And then they end up at the other end of the spectrum. I have to work with corporate clients because
With
they're the only
agencies.
fuckers who can pay me.
Yep. Yeah, so I went the opposite way, oddly enough. So I started and I did a lot of like graphic work and stuff like that for corporations and people that were doing ads at scale. And then I had that burn it all down moment where I was like, I hate what I'm doing. Like, I hate the work that I'm doing. It's boring. I don't get a lot of creative freedom because going back to design has a purpose. Ads have a purpose. Their purpose is to convert, or get people to sign up or click this button or whatever. And I kind of slowly started to just hate what I was doing, and I didn't feel like I was progressing either as a designer. I didn't feel like I was getting better. I didn't feel like my skills were like being tested. It wasn't particularly hard work. It paid the bills at a time where I really needed to pay some bills, so I'm not mad about that. But I went the opposite way, and then I was like, you know what? I just want to make really cool shit for people that I like, and if that's branding in its entirety, that's awesome. If you want me to come in and like tell you how to lay your tile on the floor to like get people to go through the aisle longer, like I know how to do that. If you just want cool stickers people can put on the water bottle, I'll do that too. I don't care. And that was my burn it down moment. Was I just want to make really cool shit.
And I think that there is real value in reaching that stage of your business where you recognize exactly who it is you serve and how you want to serve them.
Hmm.
And once we do that, the next stage is talking to a lot of people about it.
Yep.
So let's talk about that as part of the design process. What
Hmm.
does that look like?
Yeah. So what I do is I have a lot of social proof because I've done this for a while. And also have a lot of work that I have done. And so what I do is I take that work and I show it and I put it on social media and I talk about it. And then I let whoever wants it come to me. I have not sent a cold DM, I think, in 4 years, maybe five. because it's just at my core. It's just not something that I want. I'm a very big believer in, when it needs to show up, it'll show up. You don't have to go look for it. So, at least at the stage that I'm in now, right? Like if you're starting out, you're probably gonna have to send some cold DMs and shit like that you don't really maybe want to do. But um, pretty much everything that I've learned about talking to these people and getting their attention and stuff like that is put it out into the world how you want it and just sit back. Like it really is kind of that simple, and it's not easy because it's simple, but it is effective. And if you just do that and you kind of go with the flow, it does magically tend to fall into your lap sometimes, which I know that's not a very tactical, like analytical branding answer, but for the average solopreneur, it's really good advice.
And the issue here, I think, for especially solopreneurs and small businesses is the one of volume.
Hmm.
How do I create all of that social proof and visual evidence, especially to use over and over and over?
Hmm. Yeah. So don't ever do shit for free, but that doesn't mean that you get paid money. You need to get, if you're just starting out and you don't have any testimonials or anything like that, you can approach people and say, "Hey, I'm trying to, build my portfolio or whatever. I will do this for you for free as long as you write me a testimonial. Or if you refer people for it and it will be paid." And then they write me a testimonial, stuff like that. And then the more of those that you get, the easier it gets to get it. So it's one of those compounding things. So if you're just starting out, that's what I would do. Like, and I know there's a big narrative of like, you should never work for free and know your worth and blah, 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 blah. Tough conversation time. If you're just starting out, you don't have a lot of worth. Sorry. Sucks to hear, but nobody trusts you, nobody knows who you are, and you don't have any proof that you're actually good at what it is that you do. So you need to get that proof.
And visually, how do I demonstrate that?
Yeah. So I have a fancy little template that I set up in Photoshop where I just show my reviews. But honestly, like, just take a screenshot. Like, we're humans at the end of the day, right? You do not have to go to Canva and use some like testimonial template generator, whatever the fuck. Like, just if somebody sends you an email, just take a screenshot of the email that's easy to read and post it. We don't have to like reinvent the wheel on this stuff.
And I think what I want to call out here is the way in which visual representation does not have to be branded all of the time.
It doesn't have to be fancy.
How then am I visually representing my brand if it doesn't have my, branded font
Yeah,
and the little things, right?
right. So, I and this goes back to the kind of the wild brand thing. We I've always said what becomes normal will become what we resent. And I think that's an original quote. I don't think I accidentally stole that from anybody. I think I actually came up with that. But digital and social media and the internet and all of that was fucking awesome when it happened, because it just opened up this world that none of us could believe. And I am barely old enough to remember a time where we did not have internet or cell phones. I think I'm kind of on that cusp. I'm 30. So I do remember not having a cell phone, not having internet. My dad had a pager for where he worked at the time. That was so sick. Like,
Listen, I was 18 years old when I got my first pager, and it was
oh yeah.
purple, and it was incredible.
This was like that see-through plastic that we did in the
Yes,
90s. I never
yes.
understood why we quit doing that, by the way, because I
I
always
don't
thought it
know
looked
either.
cool, and I still think it looks cool. But Like, if somebody would like make an Xbox controller or something like that, I don't even have an Xbox, and I'd fucking buy it because I just always thought it was dope. But anyway, so we got into this world, and it created a lot of opportunities for us, right? Like the whole .com bubble and all of that stuff. And now it's very easy to get on here and to share a story or to talk about like this cool thing that you did, or you can make videos, you can do vlogs, you can, there's just a world of opportunity out there. But as it became more normal, we started to resent it, and now we have to like get blue light glasses because the screens hurt our eyes, and we have to monitor our screen time to make sure that we're not arguing with people on the internet any more than we should be. And so what I think is eventually going to end up happening, especially now with AI and stuff like that, I think that we are going to go back to a more like in person, physical kind of experience. We're going to want just the raw, real human stuff. And if that for you is just sharing screenshots with no branded fonts and no fancy templates and no special effects and editing and stuff like that, I think that that's awesome, because I think that's where we're going to end back up there.
And to validate this position, there is a group of New York high school students that gathered together by finding flyers in coffee shops. There is no digital advertisement of this group whatsoever. And they meet in Central Park and read poems out of old actual print
That's
books. Like,
fucking awesome.
there are real rules about this little group
That's
and
fucking
how they
awesome.
interact. And oh yeah, I love it.
That's cool. That's cool. So the going back to that, so these stickers, so if you'll notice there's a QR code down
Right?
here. So this is from the cover of the book, and then this is like a little quote from the book, like one of the ones that stuck out. And so if you scan this QR code, it takes you to a link to purchase the book. But the way that I designed these stickers, they were to be printed in bulk, very cheap, so we could order, thousands of them. And anytime somebody orders something else, so if they order the book or they order patches or hoodies or whatever, you get like 20 of these stickers. And you were told to just go stick them, on light poles and fucking where else. Like, it's very guerrilla marketing. It's very, you know, in person physical stuff. And I
Hmm.
love shit like that. I love it. Yeah. So shout out to those high school kids because that's dope.
And I think it's worth, so obviously what we do here is long form, depth based
Mhm.
content. And I think that people are going back to exploring things in ways that we did at the start of the internet.
Mhm.
So now is the time to go back to Meetup, to
Yeah.
Eventbrite. Like, go back to the places where the internet first kind of started and see what's available for you
Mhm.
there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love and I understand that like opening like a physical retail location for not everybody can do that because it's the overhead alone would probably kill most people, but you can still have if you have a digital business, I think something that people really need to look at is taking parts and pieces of that like kind of overall experience and figuring out how to do some of that in person.
I have a friend who just sold his online business, and like, it was onlinebusiness.com. Not quite, but
Wow.
close. And
I was gonna say, did he buy that in like 1993?
right, sold the name, the brand, and is opening a stationery store in downtown Chicago.
That's fucking awesome.
I
Yeah,
think
and
it's
I
spectacular.
love stuff like that. I love like the fitness coach that's like six pack ripped, like super athlete. That's like, hey, I really want to start a bakery. I'm like, yes, do it. Fuck yeah. Like everything's got high protein and like it still aligns with like the fitness side of you, but like you got a sweet tooth. Like that's dope. Let's do it. Like, I love shit like that.
And part of this is that what we've identified is that we want in-person niche experiences.
Mhm.
We want to be with our people, but there are people. And I think part of cultivating those spaces is truly about awareness of what you're creating
Mhm.
and how much branding do I need for in-person events?
Yeah. So we can go down an absolute rabbit hole with branding physical spaces. There is this guy that I follow that really kind of changed my view on how branding and a brand could be built in the physical world. His name is Johnny Cupcakes, Johnny Earl. The brand name is Johnny Cupcakes, and he sells T-shirts. Not an oversaturated market at all, right? Because, nobody
And
sells
nobody sells
T-shirts.
t-shirts.
So, not only does he sell T-shirts, he charges like 35, $40 for a T-shirt. Now, I've bought some very nice, very soft, tri-blend T-shirts, and I didn't pay fucking $35 for any of them. But when you walk into one of his stores, he sells online as well. But when you walk into one of his stores, it looks like a bakery. It smells like a bakery
Ooh.
because he crawled in his HVAC system and put air freshener in it. All of the t-shirts, to get a t-shirt, they have these like old-timey like 50s ovens that are in these like all these wacky colors, like pink and like that teal and that avocado green that people are obsessed with for whatever reason. You have to open the oven to get the shirt. Like the stickers and hats and stuff are on baking trays in an actual like bakery like glass case.
I love everything about
It's
this.
a whole fucking thing. Like you're not paying $35 for a t-shirt. The t-shirt is just what you get to remember
The
that you went
experience.
to this place and
Hmm.
had this experience. It's a fucking t-shirt. And his t-shirts are cool. Like I'm not, they do some cool like collaborations with people and like the graphics are cool and all that, but you're paying for the experience of doing that. And he does some real weird like guerrilla marketing. I think for like a Halloween event that they did, he rented a hearse and like showed up in a hearse and was selling stuff out of the back of it. Like just stuff like that. And like that sounds crazy expensive, and like some of it his retail store probably is, because I think he's got one in Los Angeles, and I know the rent there has to be fucking nuts, and I think one in Boston, which is probably not much cheaper. So that's, like that part of it's pretty expensive, but like honestly, you can get real creative and do some of this stuff for not a lot of money. I don't know how much it is to rent a hearse, but I don't imagine it's, super expensive.
Well, I mean, everything in the funeral industry is expensive, but that is
Yeah.
probably the least expensive
Yeah, like, if you
part
just like I
of
think he did it on Craigslist. I think it was just I don't even think it was, like, an actual funeral home. I think it was just this guy that had a hearse. Actually, speaking of that, my kickboxing coach, they're opening another like, the location beside of them they bought, and I've been going over there and helping them renovate because 'cause they've had to, like, tear a bunch of shit out and stuff, but we were talking about, he knew a guy, he was a car mechanic, and he drove around in a hearse and had like the part that slides out for the coffin, it was his tools. Like he was like kind of an on-call mechanic. If you couldn't like get your car to the shop, he would like show up in a fucking hearse and be like, "Okay, let's do this," and like
and
pull all
that
of his
was, I'm
tools out.
assuming, part of the branding.
It was, yeah, it was part of it. It was called Knuckle Buster car mechanic or like whatever, Knuckle Buster. And if you've ever worked on a car, you know why that's appropriate, because you bust your knuckles up. But yeah, it was part of the whole deal. I saw a picture the other day. It was I think it was an HVAC, maybe not HVAC, some sort of contractor thing. It was a service van, basically, one of those white Chevy service vans that you see everywhere. The name of the business was Cuck. And I was
I saw
like,
your Facebook post about
yeah.
this.
So the name of the business was Cuck. And I was like, if you accidentally named your business that and you are not up to date with the current slang, there are two things that you can do. You can rebrand, which, by the way, the wraps for those service vans alone, probably like $5,000. Not even kidding. That shit is crazy expensive. Friend of mine does it. It's ridiculous. And if you've got, 7, 8 vans, that's a lot of
Right.
fucking money. Not including like your logo, your website, your uniforms, business cards. Like it adds up very quick. Or the super cheap solution, lean into it. Like tell people to write reviews like, well, I didn't really want to, but my wife liked it, or like, we're going to fix all this shit and you can sit in the corner and watch. That's a really easy way, very cheap way to brand yourself, especially in an industry like that we would consider boring. They're HVAC guys. Like they're a dime a dozen. They're not really anything different about any of them. Another example, and then we'll get off this topic, but I love stuff like this. Where I used to live, there was an auto detailing shop like right down the road, and it was called Mobster Auto Detail, which is a horrible fucking
Fabulous.
name. Horrible name. But let's assume that they were dead set on the name and you couldn't talk them out of it. So if it were me doing it, I would talk about like getting all of the blood stains out of your car, like no questions asked. Like we'll get all of the shell casings out. Like no ballistics test is ever going to come back to this vehicle. Don't leave cannolis in it or we're going to steal the fucking cannolis. That kind of shit, right? But they didn't do anything like that. They have this like guy with like a hat, like a silhouette on the sign, and then the font I think is supposed to be the one from The Godfather. And that's all they did. And it's not their fault because that's probably all they really thought branding was. They were like, oh yeah, our sign's, Italian mobster looking or whatever. It looks like the mafia, but you can go really deep with it. And stuff like that does not cost a lot of money. It just you have to imagine it or outsource the imagine part, which is me. So
And I think the theme for so many of these things is play. It's to
mhm,
have a sense of whimsy about the fact that you're making money.
mhm. Yeah, we don't have to be like so fucking serious. Like, God, some of these people kill me, man. They're like, oh, I did 7 figures in revenue and we used this text. Shut the fuck up. Nobody cares. Like, show me something that you did. Show me something that you made that is worth caring about. Like, I want to know when the last time anybody like that just did something for fun. Because they could.
And I think then ultimately the question comes back to how am I building this into my brand deliberately?
Yeah. So to think about all of this at once is a big task for anybody, even somebody like me that does this for a living. Um, but you can find kind of opportunities to do that as you are in your business. You just have to kind of pay attention and you have to be not afraid to do it. Just because you're in business does not mean that you have to be this like suit and tie professional and you have to speak a certain way. If that's you at your core, cool, do it. Um, but for 95% of people, that's not who we are most of the time. So, one is don't be afraid to do it. Don't be afraid to experiment, have some fun, play around, just see what happens.
And I think that pretty naturally leaves us with what I want to talk about next time, which is differentiation.
Yes,
I
my
think
favorite thing in the world to talk about.
and I think it's going to be a lot of fun because for most people, they do not actually get to create new categories.
Mhm.
They are niching, but that's not the same thing. So being able to stand out in a crowd
Mhm.
is a fundamental aspect of branding and what we're building.
Yeah, we
And
don't do Me Too branding. Not Me Too the
right,
movement, just to be clear.
I think it's because that's where people get started is someone tells them, oh, you can do this online, you just
Mhm.
have to do XYZ things, and so naturally their branding is exactly like the person who taught them.
Yep, and you can always tell with the big brand gurus who they've done branding for because they
Hmm.
look like clones. It's the fucking clone wars out here. I will say that about what I do. If you looked at my portfolio right now, it's all over the place. Like I've done super feminine, girly, like that kind of branding. I do stuff for like people in the 2A world that, like run and gun and do stuff like that. I've done shit for a butcher shop. Like it's it's all over the fucking place because that's for me one of the funnest things about what I do. I get to work with a lot of different people, like in a lot of different industries. So I don't understand why these people want to do it and just make clones of themselves. It's
Hmm.
stupid.
And I truly, Haley, it's because it's hard.
I know.
So we're
I
going
know.
to unpack it, and we're going to help people see how differentiation is truly a joy.
Hmm.
And I think that's what's key is that once you learn how to differentiate yourself and stand out from a crowd, even with similar components, you get to be who you are, and
Hmm.
that's the funnest part of
Yeah,
branding.
and we're all different. Imagine
Hmm.
that. Crazy.
All right. Any final thoughts on what makes a wild brand?
Final thoughts. I think I quoted the Unabomber enough to land us both on a list, so I should probably just tap out where we are before one of us gets in trouble. So yeah, no.
What?
But there is
We can't. There's no place to go down from Ted
right.
Kaczynski. Is that what you're telling me?
I don't have
Okay.
any Ted Bundy quotes ready, so I would put him below Ted.
I would too, but also a master brander. So let's.
Yeah. That being said, though, I want to go on record and say I think I could have whooped Ted Bundy's ass.
Jesus. And that's where we're leaving it.
Yeah,
Haley, if
wild brands beat the shit
wild
out of
brand,
serial killers.
beat up serial killers. And if you need someone to help you beat up the serial killers in your business, go see Haley. You can find her at haleyshane.com. She wants you if you're ready to burn shit down and
Hmm.
start all over. And truly, there's probably a lot of people in my network who have recently felt those things about their business.
Oh yeah, yeah,
It's epidemic in the
it is.
air right
This is
now.
it's the
And
real pandemic. Honestly, is like fuck this. I'm done and flipping the Monopoly board.
And it is an exciting time to be alive, y'all. This is where we get to do new things and innovate and reinvent and
Hmm.
break systems that aren't working. So don't feel the desperation that comes with wanting to burn everything down. Think
It
of it,
is freeing.
it is freeing. And that's what I hope that you leave with.
Yeah.
So we will be back next time to talk about differentiation. This is the work that we're doing here at the Neurodiversity Media Network. If you have appreciated our time together, please like, subscribe. You can find us at neurodiversitymedianetwork.com. We would love to have you. Paid subscribers get a couple of private streams. And once the masterclass series is completed, we put all of that together in a handy dandy one pager for you so you can get everything in one place. And we will see you all next time. Have an amazing day, y'all. Bye.